Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another webinar series here with Net at Work. Today, we're going to extend our how-to series, and we're going to look at how to process AP invoices and payments electronically in Sage 300. So this is really the tail end of all your hard work to get the invoices in and get them paid. And so we'll go through that in some detail. Today, I am Sean Fleming. I'm a Senior Solutions Engineer here with Net at Work, and I'm really happy to have with me Susie Weiland, who's one of our Senior Consultants here at Net at Work, to take us through some of the payment processing pieces. I expect the presentation to last no more than 30 minutes today. The phone lines are muted. If you do have questions, feel free to use the question box. I will be monitoring them as we go through the sessions. It's a little bit more fun for us, and you get a little bit more out of it if you do have questions. Gives us the ability to interact with you a little bit more. And we'll get back to you, even if we haven't got an answer, we'll get back to you with answers after the session if we haven't got it during. So feel free to interact with Susie and I. Our goal through all of this is to continue to help businesses unleash the power of technology through their and transform the way that they do business. And so today, it's a small thing, but it can have big ramifications to your business and be able to pay your vendors and suppliers. And there's a number of benefits that'll hit in a second. But in addition to that, we want to make sure that we're touching all the key areas of your business that have the potential for growth and can help you expand as a business or be more efficient as a business. So whether it's, we're talking about ERP today, whether it's looking at an e-commerce site or adding credit card processing and adding CRM to your sales and marketing teams, managing your HR processes better with HR solutions. Document management has been a hot topic for us over the last 30 days of a lot of people wanting to go paperless. And everything from people have to analyze and assess how well is their business doing, and the best way to do that is through BI and analytics and reporting. So all of those services, and then at the end of the day, you've got a whole bunch of things and you got to prioritize them. A good way to do that is to go through a business process review, get your list of things that you want to address, and then we can help you prioritize them and figure out what's going to be the biggest bang for your buck as we go through this. So we're your one-stop shop. We're here to help you unleash that power of technology, and that's my Net at Work spiel. So I'll keep going. With these webinar series, we always like to do a quick poll. I got a couple of polling questions today. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first poll. So the first one is, are you using Orchid EFT to pay your vendors today? And hopefully nobody is choosing option C. Okay, so it looks like we've got, I've got about half voted here, Susie, and about 10% or so are using the Orchid EFT, and about 91% are not at this point. So that's where the poll's at on that one. So I'm going to close that poll out and then go to the next one. And this is an interesting one when we talk about paying checks. Checks can sometimes provide an avenue for fraud. And so have you ever had an issue with check fraud before? And we're seeing, a split here. So you got a 41 or 40% yes, 40% no, and then 17% that's not that I know of. And the not that I know of is still kind of falls into that, well, I'm not quite sure. Maybe somebody did, maybe somebody didn't. Or maybe something's in the works because now I've had to give my checks off to somebody else to print off the checks, and I no longer have control over the physical paper. So we'll talk through some of those scenarios as we get into this topic a little bit more today. So I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So it ended up 40 yes, 44 no, and 16% not that I know about. So I'll close that one out. All right, so let's move on to the agenda today. So we want to look at the benefits of electronic payments. We'll look at a quick demo of EFT payments, specifically the Orchid EFT. We'll look at the positive pay options. What is positive pay? We'll explain that. And then just any Q&A that you guys have. So with that, let's jump right into it. So what are the key benefits to EFT? Well, really it's an inexpensive third-party add-on that has a very quick ROI and substantial savings. So this pays for itself very, very quickly. It lowers your bank transaction fees and reduces your postage costs. It allows you to get rid of the expensive stationery and checks and envelopes that you have to go get in order to send these checks out. And then you don't have to manually touch these checks, no more manually printing, folding, mailing, stuffing envelopes, and remittance devices. So all of that saves time and saves expenses on materials you don't need if you do this electronically. So you save time and avoid errors by eliminating any duplicate data entry. In some cases, in some processes, that's prevalent. And then enhanced security, including reduced opportunity for check fraud, theft, or loss, because those checks don't exist. Everything is electronic, and I know Susie's going to go through that in some detail. And then streamlined processing means have your customers, vendors, and employees. So EFT Works, we're talking in the context of vendors today, but it also works with customers. So if you want to do a reoccurring invoices and you want to collect payments from your customers on a monthly basis, you could use EFT to do that, as well as employee payroll can be done using EFT. Okay. And you can process checks remotely. That's one of the things that we're all running into, is we need to have that flexibility to continue to work where we are in our homes, and then be able to integrate workflow approval processes as an additional step if that's something that you wanted to do. So out of the box, that workflow approval isn't there, but we just need to add one more piece of software, and we can get workflow approvals added to the mix as well. So those are all kind of the key benefits to EFT. And all right, so let's go here. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to give control over to Susie, and she's going to take you through how EFT works. So Susie, I'm going to make you presenter. You should see that here now.
Okay. All right. I am showing my screen. Can you see that, Sean?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. Okay, welcome to today's webinar again. What I'm going to show first is just creating the EFT file. So you can see how simple it is to process the AP checks that you've already created. This comes after you have posted your payment batch. So all you have to do is, there's more setup options which I'm going to go over, but all you have to do is go to the Create EFT File, and then you're going to pick the batch that you're going to choose. And in this case, I have two different ones. One I did with EFT, and then one I did to show how you can use this with Positive Pay. So we're going to do batch 30 first. And then I've chosen the file type, I selected the file type that works with my bank. And Orchid comes preloaded with hundreds of different file types and will customize as needed. We also have an option to skip the vendor and continue if there is not a vendor defined in EFT, or display an error. Right now I have it skipped because I do know that my vendors are set up. All I have to do is select Create, and then I get that message. I'm going to go ahead and close that. And this puts the file into my designated folder. And I'm going to go ahead and pick one I had before because obviously that was that. I'm going to do this one. And this will also warn you if you have already exported a batch. So in this case, I'm going to be able to see the file. And this is going to be in the format that your bank expects. And again, this also handles multi-currency. It handles foreign banks. It handles all different, any format that has been needed by a bank. Orchid has been able to create that. You would take this file and then you would upload it via your bank's web interface, and then you're done. All your checks are going to be sent. the next thing you do is after you upload the file, then what you'll do is go ahead and print the remittance advices. And right now we don't have an email exchange set up on our demo server, so these are going to come to preview. But what this does is you can have this set to go by your AP vendor setup, or you can have it to track the vendor's email addresses in Orchid. So when we print it, this is what your vendor would see as far as the remittance advice. These are crystal reports, so they can be customized. Put your logo on or do whatever else you need to do. And it will let you know when they're emailed as well. So that's an example of having a payment batch that you already created with EFT. And the second one is an example of utilizing EFT and Positive Pay. What Positive Pay is, it helps minimize or reduce or exclude fraud from printed checks. And it is a file that you upload to your bank that tells the bank what the vendor name is, what the check number is, and the amount of every check that you printed for that day or for a period of time. Usually it's a daily or periodically whenever you print checks. So we're going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and do this one, see what we get. And to do this, you have to do it twice. So you would run the batch first so that you create your actual electronic files. Go ahead and do that. And then you would upload this file to the bank. This is going to get overridden because we cannot tell the file a different name. But the next thing you do is you put in your code for your Positive Pay format. And then we create that. It's telling me it's already been done. And then when we look at this one, it's going to show us our 2 EFT payments, and then it's also going to show us our check numbers. So the EFT payments won't have check numbers, these will, and then your bank will know to expect these 2 manual checks. This works when you print checks from Sage 300. If you're a client that uses PrintBoss, which is a third-party software that has a lot of different printing capabilities, you would use PrintBoss's Positive Pay functionality. But if you don't use PrintBoss and you still have to print manual checks, you can utilize Positive Pay doing this. Okay, Sean, do we have any questions at this time?
Don't see any questions in the queue at this point.
Okay. For some of the basic setup, what you have is you've set up your bank, of course, and this is the main place where you maintain the setup. This is going to have all your vendor information. And I find that this is the most time-consuming part of implementing EFT is figuring out how to get all the information from your vendors and convincing some of the smaller vendors that it's a good idea to get paid electronically. This information can change based on the bank format that you choose. We don't have a file type set here because we're using the default file type, the Midwest. And you can see on a couple of these, this is where I did that Positive Pay. So I don't have any bank information here. That is what indicates that we need to have that check number in there for these. You also can have different statuses. So if you have an intern or somebody that you don't want them to say that this is active. You can have an entered status, you can have an active status, and then you can also mark the vendor inactive. This is also where you would maintain the email address if you chose the EFT vendor email. This is nice because unless you're utilizing the multi-contact feature of Sage 300 2020 or Tyrox tools, you only have the two email addresses, the contact and the main email address in accounts payable. So if you're utilizing purchase orders, then it's going to use that email. Payments might have to go to a different email. That's why most people use this setup and have the email go to the person who is managing the accounts receivable at the client. And as Sean mentioned, EFT also can be utilized to direct debit your customer's bank accounts, most often used with clients who do subscription billing. And also, this can process the Sage 300 payroll payments. So you would still process payroll through Sage 300, but what this allows you to do is have EFT and emailing the check stub instead of using the Sage 300 direct deposit module. And that is it for the setup and how to create the batch and sending it to the bank. So
one question,
for the 10% of people who are using it, I can entertain questions.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions that have come in here. So one question is, does AP automatically clear?
For the bank reconciliation, it does for payroll, for the non-negotiable checks. It does not for AP. So you would still have to check those off. And in Product Update 2 with version Sage 300 2020, there's actually a new feature that allows the banks to interface with a downloaded bank statement. So that should make that easier, but no, they don't automatically clear.
Okay, and then we've got another one. Can we utilize EFT processing with Sage 300 construction and real estate? Where can we find this module? So I can answer that one. It does not exist specifically for construction and real estate. The Orchid product is specifically just for Sage 300. And, construction and real estate, I'm not aware of anything that's there, but it's likely it is there, as EFT is pretty standard, but it might be a third party on their third party community. So I wish I had a better answer for you on that one. I'm just not aware of what's there for CRE. Are there any other questions? Here's another one coming, another couple coming in. What would be the best procedure to correct an EFT to the wrong bank account number?
You would probably have to call the bank. With the payroll direct deposit with Sage, you actually can send a file that is a credit that would take the money back out. But in this case, there's not a process, which is why you really want to make sure with your vendor setup that the information is correct. You also have the ability to, with the setup, I'll just go in here just to demonstrate as far as the different setup. With the file type, you can also have them with a pre-note. So what you might want to do is with your internal process is just like you do with a payroll, you always do a pre-note. You can do this for the vendors as well. So that might be the best, would be a better choice. But for the wrong account number, you'd have to go through the bank.
Another question here, is Orchid working on a web screen version? The quick answer to that is no, but hold your breath because I think it's about to drop. So I think you'll start to see the Orchid stuff come out. Some of their stuff does work with the web screens, even though they don't have interfaces to web screens. but in talking with the developers over there, they are working hard on getting things out to the web screen. So I think really the delay there was a lot of the third parties were waiting for an approved software development kit for the web screens, and Sage did come out with one, and we're now starting to see some of those third parties come in. In fact, on our demo server, we've got Norming Asset Management on here. I did see a version of Technosoft Service Manager that's probably fairly close to being released. So there's a number of them, getting closer to be released on the web screens.
Well, and EFT assured us that this was the one, since this is one of their more popular modules, that this is the one that they're working on first. So we should see that this year, hopefully.
Yep. Any other questions?
I'll go ahead and make you presenter again, Sean.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right, we've taken the live look, so it probably leads to the questions screen here. So if you've got any questions, feel free to type them in here. I'll leave this open for a few minutes after the session. So if you think of a question, I won't cut you off. I'll leave this open so you can ask your question, and we'll happily get back to you with some answers if you have any. And again, I want to thank everybody for attending. Again, if you've got questions, you can hit it up in the question box or send me an email, give me a phone call. Happy to answer any questions. We're doing a bunch of how-tos. They're not intended to be long, but they are intended to be very pointed and kind of address some of the issues that people are dealing with from a remote standpoint. So a paper process is definitely one that we want to get away from when everybody's working from home. If you need to do a remove paper process on the front end of your AP side, we talk mostly about just making payments. But say you need to get invoices into the system, you need to route approvals. There are solutions out there that drive a whole paperless process on the AP side. If that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to me, your account manager. We can talk to you about what some of your options are there. So with that, I will sign off for today, and I will see you hopefully next week on our next webinar series. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, Susie.
Thanks, Sean. Bye-bye.